Seth Rollins snapped, and what he did to Bron Breakker after Raw went off the air is something WWE did not want you to see coming. If this is your first time joining us, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to always get updates, because what unfolded in that arena after the cameras stopped rolling for the night is the kind of ruthless, calculated, cold-blooded revenge that reminds every single person watching why Seth Rollins is the most dangerous man on the entire WWE roster when he is pushed past his breaking point. This was not the charismatic, theatrical visionary doing backflips and cutting witty promos. This was a different Seth Rollins entirely. This was a man with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. And Bron Breakker found that out the hard way in the most painful way imaginable. We are breaking down every single detail of what happened, why it happened, what it means for the future, and what the fallout from this moment is going to look like over the coming weeks. Backstage Wrestling News has the full story, and we are not holding anything back. Stay with us till the very end, because the final piece of this puzzle is the part nobody is talking about, and it changes absolutely everything. Let's set the scene, because where this story begins matters just as much as where it ends. For weeks leading into this moment, the tension between Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker had been building at a pace that felt almost suffocating. This was not one of those slow-burn rivalries built on smirks and talking segments. This was a collision course between two completely different philosophies of power, two completely different generations of WWE, and two men whose paths were always going to intersect in the most explosive way possible. Bron Breakker has been operating at a terrifying level in recent months. The son of Rick Steiner has shed every last trace of a learning curve that young superstars typically carry and has replaced it with something that is genuinely alarming to watch. His speed, his power, his intensity, these are not attributes that get enhanced by experience and ring time alone. These are gifts, and Bron Breakker knows it. More importantly, he has started to carry himself like a man who knows it. But confidence has shifted into something darker, something more arrogant, something that has rubbed a significant portion of the locker room in entirely the wrong direction.
And nobody in that locker room rubs the wrong way quite like Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has spent years being the measuring stick of this company. He has been World Heavyweight Champion. He has main evented WrestleMania. He has carried programs on his back that would have collapsed under lesser talent and made them must-see television every single week. And when a young, loud, physically gifted superstar starts throwing his weight around in Seth Rollins' space, metaphorically and literally, Seth does not quietly step aside. Seth Rollins does not yield. What happened on Raw that night was Bron Breakker crossing a line he cannot uncross. During the broadcast, Bron Breakker had already delivered one of his most vicious performances in recent memory. His match that evening was a showcase of pure dominance, running through his opponent with the kind of efficiency that makes the entire locker room quietly terrified. But it was what happened after the bell that escalated things into a completely different territory. Breakker did not stop when the referee called for it. He did not release his hold when the match was officially over. He held on. He continued to punish, and he did so with a grin that told everyone watching that this was entirely intentional. Officials flooded the ring. Producers came down to ringside. And Breakker eventually released, but slowly, on his own time, making it crystal clear that no authority figure in that building was actually making him do anything he didn't already decide to do himself.
The crowd was somewhere between horrified and electrified, because Bron Breakker committing to pure, unapologetic brutality is something that commands attention, even from people who desperately want to root against him. But here is where it connects to Seth Rollins, and this is the part that lit the actual fuse. As Breakker stood in that ring soaking in the reaction from the crowd, Seth Rollins appeared on the entrance ramp. Not running, not sprinting, just standing there, watching, with an expression on his face that those who were at ringside described afterward as completely unreadable. Not angry, not scared, just watching, calculating. Breakker locked eyes with him from across the arena, and he laughed. He laughed directly at Seth Rollins. How many times has Seth Rollins held the World Heavyweight Championship or its equivalent in WWE across his entire career? Put your answer below. We are reading every single comment.
That laugh. That single moment of disrespect from Bron Breakker towards Seth Rollins is what every single person who knows Seth Rollins' career trajectory will point to as the moment this entire situation became irreversible. Because there are things you can do to Seth Rollins and survive. You can beat him. You can outsmart him. You can even embarrass him in front of millions of people and still walk away in one piece. Wrestling is a physical and psychological chess match, and Seth understands that losses and setbacks are part of the game. But you do not laugh at Seth Rollins. You do not stand in his house, in front of his audience, having just crossed every line of basic professional conduct, and look him in the face and laugh. That is not something Seth Rollins files away and processes calmly. That is not something that gets addressed with a measured promo the following week. That is a trigger. And everyone in that locker room who has been around Seth long enough knows exactly what comes after that trigger gets pulled.
Raw ended. The broadcast wrapped. The production crew started breaking down equipment. The live audience began filing out of the arena. And Bron Breakker headed toward the backstage area feeling, by all accounts, completely untouchable. He should have felt the opposite. What happened next was captured partially on handheld footage by production members who were still in the gorilla position area when it went down. And the details of what Seth Rollins did are exactly as brutal and deliberate as you would expect from a man operating on pure controlled rage. Seth had not gone to his locker room after appearing on the ramp. He had waited. He had positioned himself in the corridor that connects the gorilla position to the main backstage hallway, the choke point that every superstar passes through when they come back from their entrance. And when Bron Breakker came walking through that corridor, still riding the high of the night, still wearing that expression of supreme confidence, Seth Rollins came out of nowhere. The first shot was a running forearm that caught Breakker completely off guard and drove him hard into the concrete wall. And from that moment, Seth Rollins did not let up for a single second. This was not the kind of backstage brawl where two men exchange strikes and get pulled apart quickly. This was Seth Rollins unleashing weeks, possibly months, of accumulated fury in one concentrated, targeted assault. He threw Breakker into equipment cases. He drove him into a steel production door so hard that the sound echoed through the entire backstage corridor. At one point, Seth grabbed a piece of production equipment. Accounts differ on exactly what it was, but multiple people who were there describe it as something metallic, and used it across Breakker's back with a force that made the people watching wince and look away. Road agents and producers scrambled. Security was called. It took a significant number of people to get Seth Rollins physically separated from Bron Breakker. And even when they did, even when multiple sets of hands were pulling Seth backward, he was still pointing, still staring, still making it absolutely clear that this was nowhere close to finished. Bron Breakker had to be helped to the training room. That is the detail that matters most. The man who spent the entire evening presenting himself as completely invincible had to be helped to the training room. What is the name of Seth Rollins' finishing maneuver that he has consistently used as his most devastating offensive weapon throughout his main roster career? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how sharp the Backstage Wrestling News audience really is. Now here is where Backstage Wrestling News goes deeper than every other channel covering this story. Because the attack itself is one chapter. The meaning of the attack is the full book. Seth Rollins choosing to wait. Seth Rollins choosing that specific location. Seth Rollins choosing to do this after cameras were off and after the live audience had already started leaving. That is not impulsive behavior. That is premeditated. And premeditated Seth Rollins is a fundamentally different and far more threatening version of Seth Rollins than the one who reacts in the heat of a moment. Think about what Seth accomplished with this specific approach. He didn't attack Bron Breakker in the ring during the broadcast, where referees are immediately present, where the action gets stopped quickly, where cameras are rolling in a controlled environment. He attacked him in a corridor, in a space where there are no rules and no structure. In a space that communicated to Bron Breakker in the clearest possible terms. I will find you wherever you go. The ring is not my only option. The broadcast is not my only platform. I will reach you in places and at moments where you feel completely safe. And that safety is an illusion. That psychological warfare is worth more than any match result, and Seth Rollins knows it.
Now let's talk about what this means for Bron Breakker going forward, because the young powerhouse is at a genuine crossroads after this night. There are two directions Breakker can go from here. The first is that he responds the way his natural instincts almost certainly demand, with explosive, overwhelming force. He finds Seth Rollins and he makes Seth pay. He uses his physical advantages, which are considerable and undeniable, to try to end this conflict on his own terms. That approach is emotionally satisfying, and it is completely on brand for who Bron Breakker has been presenting himself as. But it is also exactly what Seth Rollins wants. Because the second Breakker responds with pure force, he has stepped into Seth's game. Seth Rollins has been playing this psychological chess match in WWE for years and years. He has beaten people who were bigger than him. He has beaten people who were faster than him. He's beaten people who had more momentum than him. He does it by getting inside their heads, by making them reactive, by making them chase him on emotional terms rather than strategic ones. If Bron Breakker chases Seth Rollins angry, Seth Rollins wins before the match even starts. The second direction Breakker can go is slower, smarter, more controlled. He absorbs this moment. He uses it as education rather than humiliation. He goes away, he recalibrates, and he comes back with a plan. That version of Bron Breakker is genuinely terrifying because it combines his already extraordinary physical toolkit with a level of ring intelligence and strategic patience that would make him almost unbeatable. Which version of Bron Breakker shows up in the weeks to come is arguably the most interesting question in all of WWE right now. And then there is the broader picture, because this rivalry does not exist in a vacuum. The World Heavyweight Championship picture, the positioning of both of these men on the Raw roster, the relationships and alliances that surround them, everything intersects with what happened in that corridor after the show went off the air. Seth Rollins launching this kind of vicious backstage assault sends shockwaves through the entire locker room. It makes other superstars recalibrate how they interact with both men. It makes authority figures in WWE have to make decisions about consequences and accountability that will shape programming for weeks.
Does WWE management try to find Seth Rollins, suspend him, put him in a match against Breakker immediately to give this a sanctioned outlet? Or do they step back and let this breathe, let the tension build, let the story develop organically, knowing that what they have between these two men is appointment television at its absolute highest level? Every decision made in the next 7 days will define the trajectory of this rivalry for months. And Seth Rollins does not care about any of those decisions. Seth Rollins has already made his position clear. He already delivered his message. And the message is simple. You disrespect me, you face consequences that no title, no backing, no physical gift in the world can protect you from. Bron Breakker laughed at Seth Rollins. He will not be laughing much longer. Drop your trivia answers below. Tell us who you think comes out on top when this rivalry reaches its official match. Tell us if you think Bron Breakker has what it takes to beat Seth Rollins at his own psychological game, or whether youth and power are enough to overcome the most calculated mind on the roster. We want to hear from every single one of you. Backstage Wrestling News is the only place bringing you the complete picture. Not just what happens on camera, but everything that happens when the cameras stop. Stay locked in. The war between Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker is only just beginning. Backstage Wrestling News, where the real story begins.